It's our pleasure to welcome Dr. Kanchana Thilakarathna as our next keynote speaker at AI Forum 2022. Dr. Thilakarathna's research interests include cybersecurity and data privacy. He has a strong track record working with industry, receiving many grants from organizations such as Data 61 CSIRO, Defense Science and Technology Organization, Office of National Intelligence, Google, and Facebook. His recent work in unraveling privacy risk associated with 3D point clouds and developing privacy-aware 3D data sharing in mixed reality and metaverse is funded by Meta. Welcome to our AI Forum, Dr. Kanchana. Over to you.
All right, thanks for the kind introduction and welcome everyone for this session. And you're going to hear about a topic that you probably have not heard about so far. We had many talks, very interesting talks about Metaverse, but no, as far as I remember, none of them talk about privacy in the era of Metaverse. But we had a very good, keynote today about federated learning, which talk about some of the privacy aspects. So therefore, you are probably already familiar with some of the privacy concepts. So let's get on with it. And so far, we had many introduction to Metaverse, and then I'm not going to go through it again, but I'm not surprised if you have heard many different definitions for Metaverse, even within the summit yesterday and today, because it's a kind of big elephant, right? So, you can only describe what you can see. So originally, it was coined by this, the science fiction sort of a long time ago, but I still believe that he really, imagined the, true Metaverse. And today we have Metaverse in many different forms among us, but not in its full repertoire, right? So, and you already have heard many other words like, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and then all together we call it extended reality. And so all these immersive technologies is going to be part of Metaverse. And then we also had many talks so far about, there are many different use cases. So it's appealing to many different industries, starting with gaming and then telcos and healthcare, working from home, for example. My first, real Metaverse-like experience was, 2 years ago, when we were going to organize a conference, suddenly, there was, COVID restrictions, no one couldn't travel. And then we went to Mozilla Hubs to organize their poster sessions in conference in more virtual mode, so which I kind of enjoyed. But so although we see that this many, different use cases, are we really there yet? Like, can we really experience the true Metaverse right now? Probably not, right? So if we're really experiencing true Metaverse on its full repertoire, you and me would be wearing some sort of smart glass or smart headwear right now, and will be experiencing that we'll be in the same room. But we do experience Metaverse in many different forms, right? But not in the form that we really imagine. It may take several years for us to experience that. And we see there are many different kind of devices on the market that provide certain aspects of Metaverse, some virtual reality devices, some like mixed reality devices like Microsoft HoloLens. And also we see in the market that there are low-cost enablers for Metaverse or mixed reality kind of services as well, so like Sandbox. So although there there were like barriers for some time for the success of Metaverse, but we're kind of seeing, okay, so things are improving. So there are billions of money is investing, but one barrier that we see it's not really moving forward is about data privacy. And if you look at the recent academic literature, as well as some of the discussions that are going on in industry, this has becoming a real concern among everyone, because now people are getting kind of teasers. Oh, this will be the likes of Metaverse. You will be enjoying these kind of services, okay, if you with Metaverse. So then people start thinking, oh, is it really safe? Okay, what's going to happen with my data? Okay, what kind of data that these devices can collect? So then it has become a real concern in many different industries, and also with many different corporations who are working in realizing Metaverse, like for example Microsoft, Google, and Meta. But is this a real concern? Over the years, if you go back like 10 years ago, or people talk about privacy, but people really don't care about privacy as well. So we had this kind of debate for a long period of time. So we talk about a lot, but we don't really act. So we observed in social media that we don't really take any action until there is something happens. Okay, once there is a big attack, or then we're going to come up with a plaster solution and then take care of that. So that's how we evolved up to right now. But things have, I think, changed over the years. Okay, and our community is now much more knowledgeable. So let's have a look at, okay, what really privacy is in today's context. So in general, so it's the protection of personal information. So when you say personal information, traditionally it is things like your name and your address, and then financial details, your health record. But nowadays, it's not just like these things, okay? Your photo library in your mobile phone, your IP address, your IDs of your device, like MAC addresses, okay? Your contact list, okay? And simply, installed applications in your phone, okay? So, for example, in many mobile devices these days, okay, so we all use mobile phones, right? And we have a permission structure within mobile operating systems. But for an application to access what are the other installed applications, you don't need any permission, for example. Okay, you don't need to ask user permission to access that. But just imagine that if someone have access to the apps that you have installed in your phone, okay, just the names of the applications, you can tell a lot about the person by just looking at the applications that you have installed in the application. Okay, so your personal interest can be revealed through that. Okay, your language, your gender can be revealed. So your ethnic background can be easily revealed from that. Okay, so whether you have a disability can be easily revealed through that. But we not really prepared in our society to understand that level of detail when it comes to privacy. But society is keep improving, okay, compared to few years back. For example, so one of these recent surveys done in Australia, so conducted by Australian Community Office of Information Privacy. So people tend to now understand that information like the financial information, biometric information are, they're really revealed your personality, and they're really not willing to share them with other people. Okay, so now having an understanding on privacy, why metaverse privacy is a significant challenge. So the primary reason to that is the significant capabilities of metaverse enabling devices that we have today, and there will be much more sophisticated devices will come in the near future, and they can sense the user and they can sense the environment with many different ways. Okay, they got sense audio, video, they have multiple cameras. Okay, not just one camera. They can sense your 3D surroundings. They have temperatures. Some have retina scan, iris scanners. Okay, some even have brainwave monitoring. So there's a lot of sensors packed into these devices. Okay, that means a lot of personal data. So then, with these lot of personal data, and we have two other problems with metaverse. We lack regulations. Okay, we are still in the phase of development of metaverse. Okay, and also we have not really understood some of the risks so far. And then also we have extensive use of advanced artificial intelligence techniques and machine learning in delivering metaverse services. So I'll come back and I'll explain how machine learning or artificial intelligence might be a significant problem to user privacy in metaverse. So let me go and explain to you in a kind of real example that's applicable to metaverse. So in many metaverse enabling services, okay, so you're going to wear head-mounted device, right? So these head-mounted devices can, sense your surroundings in very high details. Okay, especially let's say they can sense your environment in 3D form. Okay, but this information is required. For example, if there is a mixed reality service, right now I'm talking in front of my laptop, and okay, in metaverse environment you might have an empty desk, okay, but you probably have a virtual screen, okay, but that virtual screen needs to be anchored, into your desk. Okay, it needs to be looks clear, right? It needs to be properly anchored, not like floating on top of your desk and not like submerged into the desk. But to do that, these devices need highly accurate 3D information of your surroundings. So when a metaverse device captures such 3D information, so they looks like this. Okay, they were real data captured by us in our lab using a Microsoft HoloLens. So we went in different environments and captured different scenes. And what you can observe here is then what often happens is you're going to segment the scene to understand what kind of objects out there. So in this particular example, there is a wheelchair. Okay, so what happens if an MR device identified that there is a wheelchair at your house? Okay, so you just wanted to experience, a particular MR service. Okay, but the device can identify that there is a wheelchair nearby. So what the device can infer? Okay, device can directly infer that there is a disabled person living in this house. Okay, this is reason that there are no real regulations right now telling the operating system vendors or device manufacturers to, okay, now you can't do that, okay, for example. And then there is with the recent development in machine learning technologies is inferring such thing. Okay, so object recognition is relatively simple. You can do it on your own device. You even don't need to send your data to a cloud service provider. So if that service provider is malicious, for example, what would happen next? So next, it's highly likely that you're going to get bombarded with, these kind of advertisement, for example. So that's one way of exploiting the information observed in your surroundings. But there are many other ways of exploiting that information as well. Okay, but that's just one example. Right. So what are the other, challenges with respect to privacy and also security in Metaverse? So there are a whole heap of challenges. And of course, we don't probably have time to go through all of these things today. But, it's if you're really working towards developing Metaverse enabling, applications, you got to, understand, how do you properly treat the data that you collect from users? So this is one way of categorizing and identifying different technique, different challenges and what kind of protection methods that you can apply for data that you collect. So this categorization was done mainly looking at the data flow from the user to the cloud service provider, and then the services will come back from the cloud service provider back to the user, right? So then there is the user needs to the device needs to capture the environment. Okay, so then there is a lot related to capturing the input, and then this captured data will certainly be first stored in the device, and then there are many data protection related techniques that you can apply in the device, and then from the device that you're going to generate outputs, or let's say different virtual avatars and other things. So then there are output protection related solutions out there, and then there are user interaction with virtual and the real environment, and then itself that like device protection. So there's a whole heap of different techniques that you can leverage. Okay, and you need to. But right now, so I just wanted to give you first some overview of some of the best practices that you can do, if you're developing privacy-aware applications for Metaverse. Okay, so first thing that we need to do is, if we don't need personal information, so then we're not going to take them. Okay, and then so there is this concept called privacy by design, which build on top of these 7 principles, but in a very high level, what it says is, let's take the privacy as a default thing from the beginning. Okay, not just let's not make it as an afterthought, as we have been experiencing, throughout developing like online services for like decades. Okay, but now we're in a society that people really care about privacy, and therefore when we are developing a new technology, right now, we're in the phase of building the Metaverse, and we need to consider privacy from the get-go. And so if you consider privacy in every design decision that you take, you're going to end up with a better product than not. And then some other standard techniques that you can use is, you can make your privacy a competitive advantage. To do that, so this question that will people, would like to pay for privacy, for example, but, we all buy, curtains and blinds when we go for a new house, for example. That means people certainly happy to pay for their privacy when it comes to real world. Okay, but in Metaverse, people will certainly happy to pay for privacy as well. So there are many applications even right now with in social media and in our mobile environment that if they say, okay, we're not going to collect any data, and then that means I need to pay, and then if it is not ad supported, okay, then I need to pay. So there are community that are willing to pay for these kind of privacy-aware services. And so then there are these other standard techniques out there that we certainly can use when it comes to privacy, like anonymity. So it can provide location anonymity, you can provide data anonymity, and then there are other advanced privacy controls like perturbation of data, and so they can add noise to data. And we had a keynote on federated learning, so that's one form of providing privacy as well, but it's a distributed machine learning approach. But on top of that, you can combine that with techniques like differential privacy, and in our real world today, things like local differential privacy is already in use in different applications that we have. So it's not the time to go into these details, but what you need to be aware is there are advanced privacy controls that we really can take advantage of to develop applications in Metaverse. And then privacy always go hand in hand with regulations and policies. And there are many privacy protection regulations came out recently. For example, things like GDPR, very strong privacy legislation, and depending on your location and jurisdiction, so you will find certain applicable legislation to your country, and you always need to make sure that you follow these guidelines when you develop any kind of application. Another thing that we need to keep in mind when it comes to privacy is that users care who the data is revealed to. Okay, when you share certain information, for example, health-related data with your doctor, you don't care about privacy because it's essential that you know that you need to share that medical information with the doctor or the insurer. Okay, and when it comes to sharing certain things with your family, so that's a different story. Okay, so same goes with online services as well. And so this is again coming from that same survey, so that you can see at the bottom of the list what you have is apps and social media industry. So many metaverse related applications in future would would be categorized under these different applications or social media applications. So people are really reluctant to share data. So now I have given you kind of overall, generic techniques that we can use when we develop privacy-aware applications. But now let's take a step back and go back to the Metaverse, okay, and understand some of the specific privacy challenges related to Metaverse, and also see whether these the standard techniques that we have today, are they really enough, or do we need more different kind of techniques when it comes to Metaverse? So let's go back to the same example. So what happens here is, okay, so the device is going to capture your 3D environment, and in the behind, this is what happens, right? So as a user, you probably don't see it, but these devices collect data. They build a data bank about different data that this device is collecting, and then in most cases that this device will need to share that data with third-party applications, for example, because all of these devices that we have today, most of these devices, some are kind of proprietary, but some are open platform devices. Like if you take an head-mounted device that run, for example, Android. So then many application developers can develop application on top of it. And that means the data is collected in this device is going to be shared with these different application developers. And then some of these developers, for example, can be adversaries or malicious. Okay, so what would happen then is, they collect this data and then they can infer many different things about the user. Okay, and sometimes it's looking at spatial data. So then you can infer the layout of the space. So right now we're probably not really concerned about it because we are not really using MR capable devices in our day-to-day life. But just imagine that you're wearing smart glass and then you walk around your home and because you're continuously engaging with the glass, and then at the end someone else can completely recreate your house in a remote location. Okay, is it something that you expected? Is it something that you want? Okay, so that's is the debate here. Okay, how do we prevent that? Okay, and on the other hand, so in order to engage with the environment and then provide a better service, so you need to reveal many other personal information to these service providers. So we did an experiment with simply looking at spatial data. So looking at 3D point cloud data collected by these devices. And then we did an experiment of can we re-identify the space, okay, with high accuracy? And it's quite easy. And then it turned out to be at the end, when the user doesn't have location privacy if they start using MR capable devices, for example. So when it comes to location, we all think about, I need to switch off my GPS, for example, right? But when it comes to head-mounted device, so turning off the GPS will not protect your location. So in fact, it's even worse than a GPS because the GPS would be able to tell you whether you're at office or whether you're at home. But when it comes to location fingerprinting using 3D information, we can also tell that you're at home, but you're at the kitchen or you're at the living room or you're at the bedroom. Okay, and then what obviously what we do is we go back to remember our standard techniques like we can anonymize it, or can we perturb the data, can we add noise on top of that, or we release we only certain amount of data. Those are the kind of standard techniques that we know when it comes to controlling privacy. Okay, and so what we observed is this basic generalization kind of technique is not really going to solve the problem. Okay, because our machine learning techniques these days is so advanced that even if you, for example, sanitize your environment, you're going to add noise, okay, into your 3D point cloud data, and even the noisy environment can be still re-identified with the modern classification engines. And so there is a point that the machine learning model failed to identify that, now I don't know this particular space, I can't really localize the user. But then the input is also almost like useless. Okay, so in privacy domain, what we call is then the utility is almost like zero. So there is always privacy utility trade-off when it comes to privacy-aware techniques. And so what we have observed this the basic techniques is not going to work in Metaverse. So then with that in mind, sir, I'm going to share some of the work that we are currently doing with Meta at the University of Sydney. So what we want is we want to bring the notion and control, notion of user control into the Metaverse. So when it comes to even right now in social media, there are a whole heap of privacy controls, okay, provided by all the platforms. Okay, user feel that you have the option to, okay, I'm going to share this picture with my friends and maybe another picture with friends and friends. Okay, and also you have the option to pick what information that you're going to make public, what information that you're going to make private. But when it comes to current Metaverse enabling devices, okay, for example, scanning your environment, so there is no such control. But certain applications probably don't need this much accurate data. It depends on the actual functionality of the application and also users' context as well. So take this example. So there is a wooden chair in your home, maybe your ancestry wooden chair, which is a quite unique one, right? So if the MR capable device can have an accurate 3D fingerprint of that wooden chair, it's going to be very easy for the device to re-identify your space, for example. And also you are really concerned that I don't want to reveal that chair. Okay. For example, if there is an adversary, by revealing an accurate information of certain object, so the adversary can infer many different things. For example, if you have a Harman Miller chair, okay, if the adversary can infer the brand, and adversary can then infer the cost, okay, then adversary can put you into a bucket, for example, people who buy this kind of chair probably have this much salary, for example, and looking at the sales and others, you can even localize to some extent. So you can put certain tags for the user depending on what you can infer from an object. So then as a user, let's say you have a kind of dial in an Metaverse environment of, I don't want this object to be released. Okay, I need very high privacy for that particular object. Just imagine that you go to your room and then you scan the environment. So then it will tell you, okay, these are the identified object. You click that, and then there may be a privacy dial in your and slider, which we called like a privilege slider, and then you control, oh, this is what I want. And then what we're going to do, the challenge is, so you need to release certain level of information back to the developer, but you also need to preserve certain amount of geometric information such that the MR service can function properly. And in general, so the idea would be like this. So then let's say you have this unique environment, and then maybe with the user's input, or you might be transported into quite a generic environment. So like you have this unique chair and a table, but you have a standard office chair and a table, but they all both with similar dimensions, for example. So that allows the device to interact with the real environment properly, but it does not reveal the uniqueness of your environment. So that's kind of the direction that we want to go with this kind of research right now, what we are doing. And some of the things that we have done so far is we studied different privacy preserving transformations, okay, to do that kind of transformation. So sometimes it comes down to generalizing the 3D space into, for example, planes. Okay, and then the planes can be generated with many different techniques. And then sometimes it comes down to conservative release of different environments. Okay, if the device wants to anchor a virtual pet on top of my table, and then the device will only get access to accurate information only around that particular area, but then you also have this kind of privileged area. Then when you go beyond that particular anchor point, the information that the third-party application going to get will be much lower than the anchor point, for example. And we always keep track of privacy utility trade-off, right? So if you otherwise, whatever the privacy techniques that we are going to develop is not going to be useful. So that's one of the important things that we need to remember. And so then also we kind of work out a method that can we really early detect it, because it's really difficult as a user to determine should I make this particular environment private or not? Okay, for example, if you have we often as users we feel that the bedroom is more private environment than kitchen, but when it comes to adversarial inference, so if you look at the objects in your kitchen might reveal more information about you compared to the objects that you can see in the bedroom. So with that, so we have identified that even users will struggle to control their privacy. So then, so device should, in a way, should be able to assess that this environment is going to be very easily re-identifiable, and are there enough uniqueness in this particular object, for example. So we studied different scans of different kind of objects. Some are computer generated virtual objects that we're going to use in Metaverse, and some are real objects that we captured through Metaverse capable devices like Microsoft HoloLens, and some even with mobile phones. Today we have LiDAR scanners that are capable of capturing 3D information in many modern smartphones as well. And so what we observed is, we can develop metrics to early detect whether a certain environment is going to leak, how much information, and then give an indication back to the user. We suggest that you should provide, or you should set this level of privacy for a particular environment, for example. So with that, I want to remind you that there are many other challenges when it comes to private and safe metaverse. So we only touch based on kind of potential work in progress solution for input protection, but there are many other things that we need to work on in the future. And then it comes down to policy regulations and standards. There are standards currently in development related to Metaverse, like ISO standard and IEEE standard as well. And then we need many privacy enhancing technologies. Some are specific to Metaverse, for example, the one that I described earlier. And then we also need to work on user awareness. And finally, I want to leave you with this thought. Okay, so I know that most of you who are listening to this talk, you all have some role to play in future building Metaverse. Okay, so let's not make the same mistakes that we did in the past with online services. For example, when developing social media, very at the beginning, we had zero privacy concerns, and then always it was like an afterthought, but the world has changed now, and we need to develop metaverse with privacy by design mindset. Okay, and then we will ended up with a better environment, and then also our users will accept metaverse much better if we develop a privacy aware and safe metaverse for everyone. All right, so that's all from me today, but I'm very happy to take any questions that you may have.
So Dr. Kanchana, I'm going to give you the first question from the audience. What sort of challenges we may face in the metaverse with respect to privacy and security? Will AI help to sort these issues?
For example, because the devices that we're going to use for metaverse, they have advanced capabilities to send user as well as user surrounding. So with that, um, um, there can be many privacy challenges. So some of the challenges that we went through during the talk, like location re-identification, okay, tracking the user, and then inferring the user interest. So these are the challenges. And so AI is a double-edged sword when it comes to privacy and security. And in this case, so when we have advanced machine learning and AI capability, it's not good for the privacy, for example, because user might be sharing his accelerometer data, okay, but with an advanced AI technique, machine learning model can infer something else from the accelerometer data. For example, users' handedness. Okay, so and then user behavior by just looking at accelerometer data. So. But AI can always use for the good as well. For example, when it comes to security, we can certainly take advantage of AI. But, so therefore, AI can be used for both. Okay, it can also help develop better techniques in terms of protecting, but it can also be used by adversaries to, more sophisticated attacks.
So Dr. Kanchana, we got one more question from the audience. What might be the possible metaverse cybersecurity challenges regarding user-to-user communications and data accuracy? Are regulators ready for this metaverse?
So I guess the question is for user-to-user communication. So security in general is ready for metaverse, but what's we're not yet ready is the adversarial attacks that may come in metaverse. For example, different malicious behaviors, fake misinformation. When it comes to metaverse, we have no idea yet. Okay, so therefore we certainly have some techniques that we can use from other domains and reapply when it comes to metaverse. For example, when it comes to security, so there was another question as well. So okay, so you can secure the user trajectory by proper encryption and proper data protection techniques, but it's hard to prevent someone else learning about user trajectory by looking at certain other information. So there are, again, the question is, there are many challenges. Okay? We are very at the beginning of addressing these challenges. But if we start looking at privacy and security from the get-go, so I'm confident that with the knowledge that we have as a community today, we'll be able to develop the private and safe metaverse in the future.
So we have another questions.
Mhm.
Like virus guards for personal computers, shouldn't we have software applications where users can install in end-user devices to make sure personal information will not be shared to service providers?
So that's a good question. So that's at the end right now are responsible of the operating system vendor, for example. So right now, you have access permission control system developed by operating system vendors with all devices. So that's quite similar to virus guard, so which in a way that it protects the third-party developers accessing the raw information. So they can only access it through the approved APIs for that particular device. So that in itself acts as a protection layer. But when it comes to Metaverse, the challenge is the current access permission structure that we have is too generic. So let's say right now you can say give permission to the camera or not. But when it comes to modern cameras, camera can do 100 different things. So with access to the camera, one can also identify objects. One can also sense the movement because you can capture images with high frame rate. But that's not something that user wanted, but user doesn't have that level of control. So certainly the access permission methods that we have needs to be further improved when it comes to Metaverse-like devices. But the virus guard-like software can, it will protect user when it comes to security. But when it comes to privacy, I think a lot depends on the operating system vendor and developing better access control mechanisms.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kanchana, for sharing your profound knowledge with us.